What is up, everyone? Boshi here, back at it in Raid Shadow Legends, and you guys know what time it is. It's time to talk about the summoning event coming up this weekend. Let's jump into it. Alright guys, so before we get into the summoning info, I do want to mention over in the news section right over here, we have this Facebook Rush thing going on, and it's the first ever community challenge for us. So pretty much Raid is just trying to get some extra likes on their Facebook page, and as we hit milestones, we as a community get free stuff in game. It's been going on for a little while now, and we already hit the 250k mark, so now we're trying to reach 300k to get that legendary tome, and then if we happen to all hit 500k, then we will get everything doubled. So go out to the Facebook page, make sure you hit the like button, let your friends know, because we all like free stuff, and honestly this is some pretty cool items. You have like, if we do happen to double everything, we'll get 2 legendary tomes, 4 epic tomes, 1,000 energy, 2 days of XP boost, and 1,000,000 silver. So make sure you guys are checking it out. I know, like I said, it's been going on for a little while, but I do want to make sure everyone knows about it. But yeah, so for the summoning event, it is going to be a 10 times summon event, and it's only for Ancient Shards. So Void Shards and Sacred Shards are not included in this, which is a little bit odd for Raid to do, but it is good news for you guys because you won't be tempted to pop any Voids or Sacreds during this event. And the common theme among champions are going to be Veil or Perfect Veil. So they all have the ability to place a Veil or Perfect Veil buff. If you need any more info during the actual summoning event, you guys can always come back to this video, but all you have to do is click on the portal during the summoning event, hit the information button, and all the info will be right here. As a reminder, if you are a newer player, 10 times summon events do not increase the chance of getting an epic or a legendary, so just make sure you are, knowing that going into the summoning event. But yeah, like I said, just click on the information button, make sure you're reading through all this when or if you're planning on summoning, and yeah, you'll get all the info right here. So like usual on these summoning event videos, I'm going to go through the champions kits, give you my opinion on them. At the very end, I'll give you my opinion on if I think you should be summoning during this event. Now, these videos tend to go a little bit longer, so I'm going to go ahead and put content chapters down in the description below. So if you want to hear my opinion on a specific champion or whatnot, you can click on it and just jump to that champion. So let's go ahead and jump into the champions so we can get this video going. So the very first champion is Seneschal from the Bannerlords. He has been a part of 10 times before. A very good supporty type champion. I know he's listed as a defense, but I see him as a support champion. But yeah, so on the A1, attack one enemy has a 30% or 40% chance if you book it of placing a leech debuff for 2 turns. Leech is such an underrated debuff, helps you sustain your team without the use of lifesteal sets, so really cool. On the A2, we have Misdirect, place a Perfect Veil buff and a 15% continuous heal buff on an ally for 2 turns, and you can drop this down to a 2-turn cooldown, pretty much meaning you can keep this up 100% of the time. Perfect to keep a squishy ally safe, because Perfect Veil, they can't directly attack that person, and also it, I believe it reduces AoE damage as well, so if they take any damage, you also have that continuous healed on them as well, so very good ability. And then on the A3, we have Lordly Challenge. Place a counterattack buff on this champion for 2 turns. Has a 50% chance, or if you want to use all the books, 100% chance of placing a Provoke debuff on all enemies for 1 turn. Very good at protecting your team, just in general with the Provoke. And then also when counterattacking, he always has that chance of landing that Leech from his A1. Very cool, very underrated champion in my opinion. I can see use for him everywhere, but he's mainly used in Faction Wars. I used him in my early stages of Faction Wars, and he was great. I've also seen him in the later stages of Faction Wars, but like I said, you can use him anywhere. He's very good at just protecting your team or a specific ally. So, very cool champion. Next, we are going to have a high elf by the name of Yannica. So Yannica is a very hard-hitting high elf, mainly used in PvP situations. You can use her in dungeons and stuff like that because, like I said, she does hit hard, but mainly I've seen her in PvP. So on the A1, even the odds, attack one enemy 2 times, each hit has a 50% chance of placing a leech debuff for 2 turns, and then attacks all enemies 2 times instead, if this champion is under a Veil buff. Very basic A1, could possibly land a Leech if she doesn't have that Veil buff, but if she does, definitely a very nice A1 since it hits everyone twice. So very cool. On the A2, we have Baffling Speed. Attack one enemy, places a perfect Veil buff on this champion for 3 turns if this attack is critical, and grants an extra turn. Because she's a damage dealing champion, you're pretty much always going to have her at 100% crit, so this is always going to go off and trigger. Placing the perfect Veil buff will go into her A3, which I'll talk about in a second. But with using this ability at 100% crit, you're not really losing anything because you also get that extra turn as well. So pretty much you're attacking, gaining that perfect Veil, and then going again. So there's no real bad thing to this. And you can put it on a 3-turn cooldown, and the perfect Veil buff is placed for 3 turns. So pretty much 100% uptime if you happen to book her. On the A3, Elven Judgment. Attack all enemies, will ignore shield buffs. Pretty good right there, but removes shield buffs from targets if this champion is under a Veil buff or perfect Veil buff, then deals damage deals extra damage equal to 15% of the value of the removed shield buffs. So this is why she's used in PvP. A lot of teams like to use some type of shield buff to protect their champions. In my opinion, this is extremely good to just remove it, deal the extra damage. She does very well against teams that have Mountain King on them. She's already a positive affinity against a Mountain King, but typically Mountain Kings will use shield sets, and she's removing those shields, doing extra damage to everyone. Extremely, extremely good ability, and hits like a truck. So that is where she's mainly used, like I said, but you can use her anywhere. And with the aura, increase ally attack in all battles by 30%. Like I said, anywhere and all battles is always really good just because that includes Doom Tower as well. So overall, pretty solid attack-based champion for dealing lots of damage. Alright, next we have 2 Lizardmen. The very first one is Quargan the Crowned. He is a recently added champion to the game. Very good for Lizardmen Faction Wars, along with the Secret Room in Hard Doom Tower. I know a lot of people complain about the epic Lizardman only Secret Room in Hard Doom Tower. There's not a lot of choices, but Quargan is definitely one of the better epic Lizardmans to use. So on the A1, you have Nature's Cycle. Attacks one enemy, has a 30% chance or a 50% chance if you book it, of increasing the duration of a random buff on a random ally by 1 turn. Not the best A1 just because everything is so random. You might not, increase the duration of the buff that you want and stuff like that. I guess it's just something added to an A1, which isn't bad, but generally the A1 just isn't that great. On the A2, Overgrowth heals all allies by 15% of their max HP and places a shield buff equal to 15% of their max HP on all allies for 2 turns. And with books, you can lower the cooldown to 3 and increase the heal and shields. Overall, not a bad ability. I mean, you're healing everyone, you're placing a little bit of protection with the shield, so definitely not a bad ability for some protection and support. And then on the A3, we have Attunement. Place a perfect Veil buff and a 50% increase attack buff for 2 turns on all allies whose attack is higher than their defense. So pretty much attack-based champions, you're going to perfect Veil them to protect them and give that bump in damage with the increased attack. And then places a 60% increased defense buff for 2 turns and a block debuff buff for 1 turn on all allies whose defense is higher than their attack. So increasing the defense of those defense-based champions and giving them a little protection from any debuffs. And you can drop this down to a 4-turn cooldown, which is pretty cool. Overall, I like the fact that it gives buffs accordingly to what type of champion they are versus just giving everyone like an increased defense or whatnot. But yeah, pretty cool champion, looks pretty awesome. Yeah, solid champion for Epic Lizardman Secret Room or for Faction Wars. Before I go on, I guess all these champions can be used anywhere, but I'm going to be suggesting certain areas that I think they'll just be good in, so just keep that in mind. Alright, the next Lizardman is going to be Roxam, one of the coolest looking champions in the game in my opinion, and honestly wish I had him. His kit is heavily built on Perfect Veil or Veil. I'm going to try to go through his kit pretty quickly, but his kit is very long, so let's try to get through it. So attack-based champion. So on the A1, attack one enemy has a 50% chance or 60% chance if you book it of filling this champion's turn meter by 10%. Also has a 60% chance if booked of placing a perfect veil buff on this champion for one turn if this attack is critical. Once again, attack-based champion, always going to crit pretty much if you build her that way. And yeah, pretty basic A1. I like the turn meter fill. I like the fact it can have a chance to do the perfect veil, and that's just because perfect veil is very, very big in his kit. So on to the A2, we have jungle ambush, attack one enemy, fills this champion's turn meter by 50%, so that is awesome already. Has a 75% chance or 100% chance if you book him of placing a stun debuff on the target for one turn when attacking while under a veil or perfect veil buff. So very solid CC type of ability. Sorry. On the next, it has a 100% chance if you book of placing a sleep debuff on the target if he does not have a veil or perfect veil. So obviously you're going to get the better CC if you do have veil or perfect veil. Sleep isn't terrible, but it is probably considered one of the worst CC abilities in the game. And then places a perfect veil buff on this champion for 2 turns after attacking without a veil or perfect veil. So if you don't have the veil or perfect veil, this ability will also place that perfect veil on you. So pretty cool. Can drop this down to a 3-turn cooldown. Pretty solid CC ability if you do have the veil or perfect veil, but if not, it gives you that perfect veil. On the A3, like I said, very big kit. So while under a veil or perfect veil, he attacks all enemies and has a 100% chance if you book him of placing the big version of decreased defense and big version of weaken, and then decreases the cooldown of your A2 ability, which is very cool. Just allows you to CC a little bit more. And then while not under a veil or perfect veil, he'll do the exact same thing, but he'll only attack one champion, so only applying that weaken and decrease defense to one champion instead of all, and he will place a perfect veil on himself if he didn't have it for 2 turns. So this is pretty big just because of the fact that obviously you're going to want to be under veil to do the AoE decrease defense and weaken, but if you do not have, well, and you get to lower the jungle ambush ability, if you're not under veil, it's not the worst thing in the world. You're still applying a weaken and defense to 1, and you're getting that perfect veil for the rest of the kit. So overall, he's very reliant on veil or perfect veil. He just gets the better version of everything on his kit. But yeah, I like the fact that he plays off of everything, so that's pretty cool. And then on his passive, you have Chameleon places a block debuffs and a 25% strengthen buff on this champion for 1 turn, a 15% continuous heal buff for 2 turns whenever they receive a veil or perfect veil. So every time he receives a veil or perfect veil, he's going to get block debuffs and a strengthen for 1 turn and the continuous heal for 2 turns. Like I said, he just plays off his own kit very, very well. Honestly looks extremely cool. And then he has his aura, increase ally crit rate in Doom Tower battles by 23%. Not the best aura, but if you plan on building a couple people without 100% crit, you can, use his extra crit from his aura to get them to 100%. So very solid champion. I actually would love to have one, but I just don't have one. So next is going to be a demon spawn by the name of Candraphon. So Candraphon, oh, by the way, so Roxam can actually be used anywhere in PvP or PvE. I honestly don't really know where he's known for. Not many people already have him or not, so just keep that in mind. So Candraphon, on the other hand, is known for PvP, and that's pretty much all he's known for, and you'll see why with his kit. So on the A1, he is an attack-based legendary champion, but on the A1, he attacks one enemy, places an extra hit if the target is under any buff. Very basic A1, nothing special about it besides applying that extra hit, which could possibly kill someone depending, just because he's an attack-based champion and hits hard. So nothing special, but I guess it's cool to have an extra hit. On the A2, kind of what he's known for, attack all enemies, grants an extra turn, and resets the cooldown on the hunt skill, which is his A3, if this attack kills an enemy. This is the thing that will kill everyone in PvP. If you've seen him before, this is that big AoE tentacle thing that just slams down and kills everyone. Very hard hitting ability, but yeah. On the A3 is on the hunt. Places a perfect veil buff, an increased attack buff, a increased speed buff, and a increased crit damage buff on this champion for 2 turns. He's a very selfish champion, but this is the reason he hits so hard. And with the perfect veil, it goes into his passive, which is from the shadows. So his passive effect for this is damage is increased by 40% while attacking under a veil or perfect veil, which obviously he gives himself with his A3. And then receives 40% less damage while under a veil or perfect veil buff, so he's going to take less damage in general, and then also boosts this champion's turn meter by 15% each time this champion receives damage under a veil or perfect veil buff. So any type of AoE attacks, if he's the only one under perfect veil, are the only things that's going to hit him, but he's going to gain that extra turn meter boost. And then his active effect on this places a perfect veil buff on this champion for 1 turn each time an enemy's turn meter is filled. This buff cannot be removed. So pretty much this is why he plays into PvP so well. Majority of the people will want to boost their turn meter, which automatically puts him under a perfect veil, which triggers his passive effect of doing more damage. Obviously, then he'll use his A3 to give him increased damage stuff like increased attack and crit damage. And then he just slams your whole team with his A2 and possibly resets the cooldown to just give himself perfect veil again. This is what he's known for. He is a god in PvP in my opinion, but that's honestly all I can see him being played in. Possibly you can use him in Faction Wars. I'd imagine he does well there as well, but yeah, PvP is where he's at. Next, we're going to jump into some Dark Elves. So the very first one is Fang Cleric. I think a very underrated champion in my opinion. A support-based champion. So on the A1, Conduit Fangs, attack one enemy has a 100% chance if you book it of transferring 1 random debuff from this champion to the target. Nothing huge or anything, but it would be maybe nice if he has a decreased defense to just transfer that off himself and onto the opponent. On the A2, Shadowy Blessing heals an ally by 20% of this champion's max HP. It's based off of this champion's max HP, which is kind of nice, so you can build him heavy on HP. Also fills the target's turn meter by 30% if they are fully healed by this skill. Very cool, gets the effect even if you're overhealing. And then places a veil buff on the target for 1 turn if they are not fully healed by the skill, so protecting that champion if they're not fully healed. And you can drop this down to a 2-turn cooldown, so at that point he can become a heal bot, healing every 2 turns. But yeah, very underrated ability in my opinion, and champion overall, like I said. And then on the A3, Return to the Ranks, revives a dead ally with 30% HP, then fills their turn meter by 30%, also places an unkillable buff on the target for 1 turn, and a continuous heal buff for 2 turns. And you can drop this down to a 4-turn cooldown. Very cool. I actually like revives that have some type of protection for the ally, so that way they just don't fall over again. This is giving unkillable and a continuous heal, which is very nice. And then his aura, increase ally speed in all battles by 15%. That's really awesome. There's not a lot of increased ally speed in all battles, so it's a pretty awesome aura. Overall, very solid champion. Nothing crazy or whatnot, but very underrated in my opinion, like I've stated. Next is going to be Vizier Ovelis. Clan boss god in my opinion. He is one of the few increased buff duration type champions. So yeah, let's go through his kit. So attack based champion from Dark Elves, Accursed Blades, attack one enemy 3 times, each hit has a 35% or 50% chance if you book it of increasing the duration of all debuffs by 1 turn. This is exactly what he's known for, extending the poisons or the increased defense, decreased defense, decreased attack buffs or debuffs on the clan boss. I actually personally use him in my clan boss team, so honestly, extremely good champion for that. On the A2, Master of Misery, attack one enemy 2 times, each hit has a 50% chance or 75% chance if you book it of placing a block buffs debuff and a 50% decrease attack debuff and a 100% heal reduction debuff for 2 turns. This ability is something that you want to kind of not want to use on clan boss if possible, if you're like manualing through the very first couple of turns, just because putting block buffs and heal reduction is not something you want to do on a clan boss. It's nothing too big or not whatnot. You want to aim for poisons and things that actually matter. But overall, like in the setting of like a dungeon or whatnot, this isn't a bad ability. On the A3, we have Vizier of Poisons. Attack one enemy, applies a debuff spread effect, one of the very few debuff spreading champions, and takes 2 random debuffs from the target and placing them on all enemies, and then places a perfect veil buff on this champion for 3 turns if the target is under 2 or more debuffs. Like I said, he is one, I think, of three or four debuff spreaders. Debuff spread is not widely used for the most part, but if you have a lot of single target champions that do like a decreased defense on one champion or poison on one champion, you can use this ability to spread those debuffs to the rest of the enemy team or to certain adds or whatnot, and that could be pretty cool. And then on the passive, places a perfect veil buff on this champion for 2 turns at the very start of the round. Just gives him some protection at the very start of the round, nothing too big at all. And then you have an aura, increase ally attacks in dungeons by 34%. Like I said, he is very useful for clan boss. I can see possibly use of him in like Doom Tower or dungeons, but he is very much known for his clan boss ability. Alright, and the last champion is going to be from the Night Rev team, and it is Rector Drath. So Rector Drath is a very good support champion, and they are the only reser, I believe, of Night Rev. So extremely good for faction wars because you want to keep everyone up, and in general for just dungeon runs or whatnot. And I'll talk about something at the very end about Rector Drath that people may not want to know, like they may know or may not know, so let's see. On the A1, Scepter of Authority, attack one enemy, has a 35% or 50% chance if booked of placing a decreased attack debuff for 2 turns. Very solid A1. Decreased attack is always a welcome thing. On the A2, we have Necro Mutation, heals all allies by 20% of this champion's max HP. After healing, places a perfect veil buff for 2 turns on all allies with full HP. So pretty much just gives AoE protection at that point, since everyone will be under perfect veil. And then places a 15% continuous heal buff for 1 turn instead on all allies with less than 100% HP. I almost wonder if they should be flipped, but either way, a very solid healing ability on the A2. On the A3 is the Res. Spirit Form revives a single ally with 60% HP, fills their turn meter by 60%, and places a perfect veil buff on them for 3 turns, and this is on a 4-turn cooldown. Very solid res, gives a perfect veil to at least protect them from being directly attacked, as long as you have someone out of perfect veil. I like the 60% turn meter increase as well, so very solid res. And then on the passive is Master of Ghosts. Whenever an ally under a veil or perfect veil buff gets a turn, heals them by 10% of their max HP. Also increases the resistance of all allies under veil or perfect veil by 50, and this doesn't stack with multiple rectors. So the thing I wanted to talk about is this actual passive right here, Master of Ghosts. So I believe Rector Drath does prioritize using the A2 first, so pretty much you're going to put everyone under a perfect veil, but at that point, every single time someone takes a turn, you're going to get an animation from Rector Drath from the passive, and it's going to heal, so it makes runs a little bit longer just because you have that extra animation. A lot of people do not like that about Rector Drath, but it's just something that's built into the kit, so I just wanted to let you guys know that if you're into min-maxing speedruns. And then you have the aura, increasing ally resist in Doom Tower by 55. Nothing too big, but resist is kind of useful in Doom Tower for getting through waves, or maybe if you want to use Rector in the Frost Spider. But yeah, overall, actually a very solid champion. Like I said, very good for faction wars, as Rector Drath is one of the only or the only reser in Night Rev. So yeah, very solid champion. Yeah, so that is it for all the champions involved in the 10 times event. Pretty good champion list overall. In my opinion, do I think you should be summoning during this event? Sadly, I would say no, and that's just because we have the Fragment Summon event coming up next week. I believe it starts next Tuesday, and there are always summon events and stuff like that to go along with it. So you might want to save as many shards as you can. If you want some of these champions, I definitely would say a lot of these champions are worth going for. But yeah, and plus this is only including Ancient Shards, so you still get to keep your Voids and your Sacreds this week if you are wanting to. So overall, I would say, save your shards or save most of your shards for the Fragment Summon, but honestly, if you choose to summon during this event, it's definitely not a bad thing. I might pop some shards just to try to get a Roxam, but I highly doubt I'll get them. But yeah, so overall, that is it. Let me know if you guys want to know anything else. Let me know if you guys are going to be summoning during this event down in the comment section below. If you guys like this video, please hit that like button and subscribe so you guys can see more, and I will talk to you guys later. See ya!